One horrible second, time stopped completely. Birds scattered from the power lines above. A scream tore through the cold morning air. And then silence, except for the soft, sickening clatter of a wheelchair tipping sideways onto the pavement. I was sprinting before my brain caught up with my legs. Heart hammering so loud it drowned out everything else. I couldn't feel the concrete under my feet. Couldn't hear the distant sirens. All I could see was her. My daughter. My 12-year-old baby girl, lying motionless next to the bus stop sign. A thin red line trailed from her shoulder down to the crack in the concrete. Her hands still clutched the fuzzy sleeve of her favorite sweater, the one with the cartoon kittens. Her backpack had fallen open, books spilling into the gutter like scattered pages of a life interrupted. And there was Karen, standing 4 feet away, still holding the smoking gun in both hands. Her mouth twisted into something between triumph and terror. "She blocked the sidewalk," she muttered. She was always blocking the damn sidewalk. Her voice trembled, but not from guilt. From anger. As if she were the one who had been wronged. A neighbor dropped to his knees beside my daughter, pressing his jacket into the wound. "She's bleeding. Call 911 again." Another woman was already on the phone, voice cracking. I collapsed next to Ava, cradling her head in shaking hands. Her lips barely moved. Her eyes fluttered open just once. "Daddy," she whispered. "The bus." Then nothing. The police arrived 8 minutes later. Paramedics pushed me aside. Karen was escorted to the back of a squad car, but she wasn't handcuffed. Not yet. It was self-defense, I heard her tell the officer, smoothing her cardigan with steady hands. She lunged with the chair. I felt threatened. Threatened. By a paralyzed child reaching for her water bottle. I want you to hold that image right now. A 12-year-old girl in a wheelchair, shot at a school bus stop by her HOA neighbor, bleeding on the pavement while her attacker stands over her citing self-defense. No arrest. No handcuffs. Just a polite conversation between Karen and the officers while my daughter fought for her life. This is what happens when cruelty hides behind HOA rule books. This is what happens when a system designed to protect the powerful ignores the vulnerable, until a child pays the price. This is Ava's story. And it changed everything. We moved to Willow Creek because it seemed perfect. Quiet streets. Clean sidewalks. Friendly waves from neighbors. The kind of community that sends welcome cookies when you arrive and hosts summer barbecues on cul-de-sacs. As a single father raising a daughter with disabilities, I wasn't just looking for safety. I was looking for belonging. A place where Ava could grow up without being stared at, whispered about, or treated like a burden. My daughter Ava was born with a rare spinal condition that left her paralyzed from the waist down. But if you met her, you'd forget that within about 10 seconds. She was the kind of kid who lit up a room just by rolling into it. Witty, fearless, impossibly kind. The girl who named every squirrel she saw and left encouraging sticky notes in library books for strangers to find. Her wheelchair wasn't a limitation. It was just part of the adventure. I swore I would never let anyone make her feel less than. The first few months at Willow Creek were everything I'd hoped for. Ava made friends with a girl down the street, helped the elderly couple next door water their flowers, joined the community book club at the rec center. She had routines, and her favorite was the bus stop. Every morning she'd wheel herself 2 blocks to the corner of Elm Ridge and Maple, pull up beside the painted yellow curb, and wait with the other kids. It was her space. Her small, beautiful declaration of independence. Not everyone appreciated that. The trouble started with paper. Folded notes taped to our door. Slipped into our mailbox. All unsigned. All in the same sharp, slanted handwriting. Please be mindful of sidewalk rules. Wheelchairs should not obstruct pedestrian traffic. This is a community, not a special accommodation zone. We knew immediately who wrote them. Her name was Karen Elrich. And yes, that was her real name. Mid-50s. Manicured nails. A blonde bob that didn't move in the wind. Always in pastel sweaters and white walking shoes, like she was perpetually headed to a tennis lesson. On paper, she was the HOA secretary. In practice, she was the self-appointed enforcer of everything from trash can lid angles to the acceptable height of porch flower pots. Karen didn't like children. Didn't like dogs. Didn't like anyone who didn't look like they belonged in a gated community brochure. And she especially didn't like my daughter's wheelchair on her sidewalk. She never said it directly. She was too calculated for that. Instead, she weaponized the rule book. First it was petty. Reports filed for leaving our recycling bin out 15 minutes past collection. Claims that Ava's wheelchair ramp violated community aesthetic guidelines. Demands to trim shrubs that were already within HOA specifications. Then one afternoon, I found Ava sitting quietly in her room, crying. She had just come home from school. She handed me a crumpled note from her backpack. "You don't belong here. People like you make our neighborhood look bad." I walked those streets that night with the note clenched in my fist, jaw tight, trying to decide what kind of father I wanted to be in this moment. I wanted to rage at Karen's doorstep. Instead, I went home and reported it to the HOA board. Their response: "There's no proof who wrote it. No direct threat. We recommend you let it go." Let it go. That was the night I started building a paper trail. I installed a porch camera, saved every HOA letter, filed a quiet police report, not because I expected action, but because I knew I'd need it later. Something in my gut told me this wasn't just passive aggression. This was personal. This was escalating. And people who hate like Karen hates don't stop at notes. Spring came and the neighborhood fractured. Some residents kept their heads down, afraid of becoming Karen's next target. Others whispered support privately but went silent in HOA meetings. A few, the worst kind, started echoing her language. "She's sweet, sure, but doesn't the ramp kind of ruin the uniform look?" That word. It burned every single time. Ava refused to shrink. Every morning she wheeled to the bus stop in a different colored scarf, bright, bold, defiant, as if she was personally declaring war on Karen's gray uniformity. She smiled at everyone. She waved. She showed up. Until the day she came home shaking. She stood in the kitchen holding a piece of paper, staring at the refrigerator like she was trying to memorize it. I took the note from her hand. This one was different, scrawled in angry red ink on a torn HOA notice. "Keep her off the sidewalk. Next time it won't be just a warning." I called the police. The officer was polite and exhausted. "Unless there's physical harm, sir, it's a civil matter. Maybe consider mediation." Mediation. With a woman who considered my daughter's existence a personal attack. I went to the next HOA meeting and read that note aloud to the entire board. This was left in our mailbox. My daughter found it. She is 12 years old. A few gasps. Some murmurs. Karen leaned forward with her clipboard. "Do you have proof anyone in this room wrote it?" I held her gaze. "If anything happens to my daughter, anything, I will hold this entire board personally accountable. Every parent, every reporter, every lawyer will know this story." The meeting moved on. No action was taken. That weekend, someone slashed the tires on Ava's wheelchair van. After that, she stopped wearing the colorful scarves. Her smile didn't disappear completely, but it dimmed, the way a light flickers before the power cuts out. She still went to school. Still waved at the bus driver. But she kept her eyes down. Stopped doodling in her notebooks. Stopped singing under her breath. I noticed. I always noticed. Karen escalated to surveillance. She began appearing at the bus stop with her phone out, recording Ava's arrival like she was documenting criminal activity. She's in violation of HOA Ordinance 6C. Sidewalks must be cleared during designated hours. I've logged the timestamps. When I started walking Ava to the stop myself, Karen physically blocked our path. There's a drop-off zone around the corner that doesn't interfere with the sidewalk. "She doesn't need to be hidden," I said. "You're escalating, sir. I'll have to report this interaction." Days later, a formal notice of violation. Second offense. $250 fine. Next offense may result in legal action. I crumpled it. Then I uncrumpled it, printed another copy, and framed it above our doorway. Proof that we weren't paranoid. That this was real. Ava looked at it and asked quietly, "Do you think she'll ever stop?" I couldn't lie to her. "No." She nodded. "Then we won't stop either. Right?" I looked into her eyes, eyes that were braver than mine had any right to be, and nodded. But in my chest, something cold had taken root. Karen wasn't just angry anymore. She was obsessed. And obsessed people don't stop at fines. They escalate until something breaks. It was a Tuesday. The kind of morning that doesn't warn you. Clear sky, crisp air, birds in the oak trees, the ordinary sounds of a neighborhood waking up. Ava had slept late and we were rushing. She tugged on her hoodie with the cartoon kittens, tucked her homework into her backpack, gave me a sleepy smile. Let's race. She usually went alone, she liked the independence, but that morning I decided to follow at a distance. Not because she needed me, just because something quiet in my gut said to. I stayed half a block back, close enough to hear the soft hum of her wheels over sidewalk cracks. She looked small from that distance. Small, but completely unafraid. She reached the bus stop and did exactly what she always did. Pulled beside the yellow curb. Locked her wheels. Waited. Other kids gathered around her, backpacks bouncing, conversation overlapping with the morning wind. Then Karen appeared. She wasn't walking her dog. Wasn't carrying her usual coffee. She walked fast. Purposeful. Her hand holding something beneath her coat. You're blocking the sidewalk again. Ava's voice was steady. There's enough room. You're in violation. Karen stepped closer. I started moving faster. Karen, back off. She didn't even glance at me. She turned on Ava with something raw and ugly in her face. You think the whole world has to bend for you just because you've got wheels? This isn't your playground. This is my neighborhood. I'm just waiting for my bus, Ava said. And then Ava reached into her bag, just to grab her water bottle. Karen flinched. Her hand shot inside her coat. The silver pistol cleared the fabric in one motion. I screamed. I ran. Ava froze. The gun fired. The cracks split the morning open like an axe through wood. Ava's body jerked. Her wheelchair tipped. She hit the pavement sideways, hard, her head striking the concrete, books and papers scattering across the yellow curb. She had waited at 100 mornings before this one. I was on my knees beside her before I even registered falling. Blood soaked through her hoodie. Her lips were moving. Dad. Stay with me, baby. Please stay with me. Karen stood over us, gun still in both hands, breathing hard. Her face was pale, but her expression wasn't horror. It was something closer to satisfaction. The terrible calm of someone who believed they had finally done what was necessary. She reached, Karen said, to no one in particular. She reached for something. A neighbor screamed at her. She's a child. You shot a child. Police arrived 5 minutes later. Karen was detained, but not handcuffed. The officer who spoke to me asked his questions carefully. Documented everything. Then, toward the end, he looked at his clipboard and asked, Do you know if your daughter made any sudden movements? I stared at him. She's 12, I said. In a wheelchair. Surgery lasted 4 hours. The surgeon emerged looking hollowed out. She made it. We stopped the bleeding. But there's nerve damage. She may lose partial function in her arm. We'll need to monitor for brain swelling. I wept then, finally, in a hospital hallway with my hands still stained red and my shirt still torn. Not from relief, not yet, but from the sheer, crushing weight of having held back that scream since the moment the gun fired. When I saw her, she looked impossibly small in that hospital bed. Tubes, monitors, machines keeping time while her body struggled to catch up. I held the hand that wasn't bandaged. You're the bravest girl I've ever known. Her eyes opened slightly. I'm here. The pause. I didn't move fast. She had. But I said, I know. 3 days later came the news that completed the betrayal. The detective delivered it with folded hands and careful eyes. At this time, the district attorney has decided not to file charges. Stand your ground laws are complex. No arrest. No charges. Karen went home. The next morning she was on her porch watering her hydrangeas in pink gardening gloves. The HOA released a statement expressing sadness over recent events between 2 community members and asking residents to refrain from spreading unverified accounts. Unverified accounts. Ava's blood had barely dried. We had to leave Willow Creek entirely after the threats began. Anonymous emails, a dead rat in our mailbox, Ava's wheelchair tires slashed again with the word liars spray painted on our garage. We rented an apartment across the city. Ava started remote school. Started therapy. Was strong, but a different kind of strong now. Quieter. More careful with her trust. Karen got her gun back. She was photographed smiling at an HOA community brunch 2 weeks after the shooting. I was sitting with Ava in a hospital waiting room after a therapy session when she said the thing that changed everything. She looked at me, arm in its sling, and said quietly, "Dad, I don't want her to win." "She hasn't," I said. "Yes, she has. She shot me. She gets to sleep in her own bed. I can't even comb my hair." She reached for my hand. "I want people to know. Not just the pain. The injustice." It took her weeks to write it. Sitting at the dining table with her good arm, propped on pillows, typing slowly. Pausing often. Not because she didn't know what to say, but because saying it meant owning the pain instead of being owned by it. We uploaded the video at midnight. No music. No editing. Just Ava's face in a plain room, looking directly into the camera. "Hi. My name is Ava. I'm 12 years old. I like painting animals and reading scary books. I was shot by my neighbor while waiting for the school bus because my wheelchair was in her way." She paused. Took a breath. She said I moved too fast. That I threatened her. But I'm 12, and I was just reaching for my water bottle. Then the line that shattered everything. If I didn't have wheels, would I still be scary? A long silence. She's not in jail. I'm not in school. That's the world we live in. A whisper to close, but I'm still here. By morning, 2 million views. By afternoon, national headlines. By the end of the week, #JusticeForAva was trending globally. Talk shows. Celebrities. Disability advocates. Teachers reading her words aloud in classrooms. Parents of special needs children weeping at kitchen tables across the country. And under that pressure, something cracked. The district attorney's office issued a new statement. "In light of new public evidence and reconsideration of witness testimony, we are reopening the investigation." A new detective arrived. One who asked better questions. One who listened. He reviewed our porch camera footage again, frame by frame this time, and found what the first investigation had missed. Timestamps showing Karen's stalking pattern in the days before the shooting. Audio from neighbors who had been too frightened to speak until now. Within 72 hours, Karen Elridge was arrested. Charges: aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, reckless endangerment of a minor, and violation of civil rights under disability protection laws. The mugshot hit the news like a thunderclap. No pink cardigan. No manicured composure. Just a woman with fear in her eyes, not because she was sorry, but because she had finally been seen. A month after the arrest, I found something folded inside Ava's old backpack, the one she'd had the morning of the shooting. I hadn't touched it since that day. The bloodstains had faded, but the weight hadn't. Inside was a handwritten letter addressed to the Willow Creek HOA board, dated 2 days before the shooting. "Dear Willow Creek HOA, I know some people don't like me because I use a wheelchair. I try to stay out of the way. I try to smile. I try not to take up too much space. But the sidewalk is public. I have a right to be there just like everyone else. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to be normal. I want to wait for my school bus. I want to go to book club. I want to live. If I'm doing something wrong, please just tell me nicely. I promise I'll fix it. But if the real problem is that I exist in your perfect neighborhood, then I guess that's something I can't fix. Ava James." I sat with that letter for a long time, barely breathing. This wasn't a child asking for tolerance. It was a warning, soft-spoken, heartbreaking, written by a 12-year-old girl who saw the storm coming and still believed kindness could stop it. They never responded. We released it publicly. Schools read it in assemblies. Advocacy groups printed it on posters. Universities requested permission to use it in ethics curricula. It traveled further than any legal filing, any news segment, any hashtag. But the most powerful moment came at the courthouse. During Karen's arraignment, Ava sat in her wheelchair, still bandaged, still healing, and faced the woman who had tried to erase her. Karen refused to meet her eyes. Ava raised her hand. The judge permitted her to speak. She didn't give a speech. No trembling monologue. No tears. Just 4 words, delivered with absolute steadiness. "I forgive you." Karen flinched like the words had cut deeper than any bullet. That was the moment I knew Ava had already won. Not because of lawyers or media or public pressure. Because she had refused, through everything, to let hatred reshape her soul. Karen eventually took a plea deal. 2 years probation, mandatory community service, firearms permanently revoked. No prison time. It stung. It still stings. But what grew from Ava's story couldn't be measured in sentencing guidelines. She spoke at the State Disability Rights Convention, the youngest speaker in the event's history. She told a room full of legislators what it meant to be seen as a threat simply for existing. She received a standing ovation not for her pain, but for her refusal to be defined by it. New legislation was proposed that same month. Mandatory HOA accessibility training. Stricter limits on stand-your-ground loopholes in cases involving minors. Neighborhood accountability boards giving residents like Ava a formal voice. They called it Ava's package. The bus stop at Elmridge and Maple looks different now. Wider bench. Concrete ramps on both sides. A small plaque beneath the painted yellow curb reads, "In honor of Ava James. You belong." We never went back to Willow Creek. We didn't need to. At home, she's still just Ava. Learning to draw with her left hand now. Slower, a little messier, but still vivid and full of color. We still have bad days. Triggers, flashbacks, the invisible bruises that don't heal on schedule. But we laugh more. We fight about movies. She insists on horror, I vote comedy. She almost always wins. Sometimes she wheels herself outside and sits quietly under the oak tree in front of our apartment, just breathing. "I used to hate silence," she told me one day. "Now I think it's what healing sounds like." I looked at her, this small girl who stood taller than anyone I'd ever known, and understood something I couldn't have articulated before all of this. You never discover what a child is truly made of until someone tries to take everything from her. And you never understand what a community is worth until it has to decide whether to protect the powerful or stand with the vulnerable. Pull your HOA's governing documents and read them completely, every bylaw, every enforcement procedure. Most residents have never read the rules being used against them, and that ignorance is exactly what people like Karen depend on. Know your rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Accessibility accommodations are federal law, not optional aesthetic considerations. Any HOA that fines you for a wheelchair ramp or threatens action over an accessibility modification is operating outside federal statute, and that's a fight you can win. Document everything from day one. Notes, letters, timestamps, photographs, police report numbers. The evidence that reopened Ava's case existed because a porch camera caught Karen's pattern over weeks. Documentation isn't paranoia. It's the foundation of every legal case that has ever succeeded against an HOA. And understand this above all else, silence is not safety. Ava tried silence. She tried compliance. She tried kindness. She wrote a letter. The HOA never even replied. The only thing that ultimately moved the system was the one thing they most feared, her voice, public and undeniable. Tell me in the comments, have you ever faced a system that told you to just let it go? Did you fight, or did you fold? Subscribe to the HOA Files, because when truth is denied a platform, we become the voice.